Welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of my wee tongue-in-cheek talking about the clans from Vampire Masquerade and how I saw them played live in games. A bit of stereotypes, archetypes. So let's kick off with the setites. I love the concept of the setites. They've a great concept. The corruptors probably better as an NPC, but then White Wolf would go and ruin it all by giving them loads of paths, loads of gooby powers, turning them into a power gamer's paradise. And not only with a power gamer's paradise, I've never seen a setite character go and demand to the Keeper of Elysium to turn down the lights because it's too bright. What can I say? Setites, yep. Power gamers. That's Ravnos. What can you say about Ravnos? Ravnos really screwed the pooch with this one. I hate the write-up for Ravnos, and they sort of have to be criminals. Fortunately, I'd only seen 2 played in game, 3 if you include a Sabbat game as well. What did I see with the Ravnos do? Is it a Grangirl? Is it Bruja? Who cares? Because they've just stole my hubcaps. Sorry, but White Wolf just ruined what could be a great concept. Assamite. The Assamites was my first long-term character. I was masquerading as a Toreador. And then as White Wolf morphed the clan and give it a bit more dimension than just being the killer that collected the blood, which they could use a ritual to load generation, I morphed into a vizier and became an ambassador to the Camarilla. Sadly, I was killed by a Justicar sanctioned hit squad. Hey ho, these things happen. Assamite's a funny thing for PC because I'm never really happy with player versus player, character versus character combat resulting in player deaths. Got some thoughts about that in another video. So having a set of characters which are all about killing other characters always set badly with us. So when I was the kind of original Assamite concept, I was kind of doing jobs for blood which didn't involve killing other people. So it was like spy work, testing security, being security, that sort of thing. One of the things about playing the Assamite for me was masquerading as another clan and trying not to be found out. Got to twist your fellow players not to metagame too much there. Other than that, you know, with the viziers and the sorcerers and the warriors, before that, the Assamites, without that kind of infiltration thing and doing some cool stuff, Assamites for me are pretty much often played as a one-dimensional blade character. Bit too straight up and down. Giovanni. Suits. I always found the Giovanni weirdly popular. Often if there was a problematic player or problems coming from players, it was coming from players who played Giovanni. I've never seen the appeal to play Giovanni. Especially with the kind of promise of neutrality, kind of limiting what you can do in terms of station and standing and stuff. I can see the appeal of necromancy, which is a really interesting discipline in itself. But yeah, with the promise and the neutrality, it's, Giovanni, get in or get out. Now, Giovanni's NPCs I've used loads. Often I'll have like an NPC faction in a neighbouring town or city that the packs and the clans have to go and deal with. Say packs, because I used it a lot in a Sabbat game. Sabbat would kind of targeting our Giovanni domain rather than going straight into the Camarilla, and it does really interesting stuff with that. But ultimately, I don't see the appeal of the Giovanni. Now the Hecata, now that's where the money is. That is a pretty funky clan. La Sombra. Getting into Sabbat, my beloved Sabbat characters. Super cool, super bad. La Sombra should just cut through everything like a knife. However, La Sombra players, My opinion is generally Ventrue players who've watched too much Blade, which is a pity because La Sombra are an awesome clan. Now the other thing is, depending on your point of view, if you are lucky or perhaps unlucky, you'll end up with a player who knows the La Sombra background, and you could end up with a La Sombra Jack Sparrow, which I have seen a couple of times. Those Corsairs is one thing worse than being not talked about. Being talked about, is that not being talked about? Anyway, you get the idea. Now, if you were playing Sabat, the La Sombra are actually a pretty cool clan for new players to start with. Not that clan matters too much. The Anti-Tribute kind of have a few sort of kinks and changes from what you'd expect. But La Sombra, they're one of the key clans of the Sabat. Obviously, I'm talking pre-V5 here. One of the key clans of the Sabat. You know, you can look sharp in a suit. You've got a bit of power behind you. You've got a bit of respect. And hopefully there'll be other La Sombra there to kind of guide you and keep you in line, because as La Sombra don't like to see other La Sombra fail, but they're always in competition with each other. Now Tzimisce, I've never played a La Sombra. Tzimisce, strange flesh mastering looking characters. When I first started playing sort of tabletop, I never really got how alien the Tzimisce were and how weird they could be. And certainly, you know, way back in tabletop 94, 95 with this player's guide, I did play Tzimisce character tabletop. But then as it progressed into 3rd edition revised, you got a really weird sense of these Tzimisce with the flesh crafting and Vords and changing themselves and their Schlachter and stuff. And the thing is with that, it's pretty hard to pull off in LARP, or just the ability to constantly meld stuff. So Nosferatu, for example, you can do some makeup at the start of the night, that's not going to change. Whereas Tzimisce, you might want to change your makeup or change other people and stuff, so vicissitude's pretty difficult to pull off. I know I played an Elder Tzimisce in the Sabat, Baron Vladimir Tybovich Vaslov, based on Baron Harkonnen, so a giant fat man. The Elder power that allowed me to fly, so I could be a floating fat man. And I had like some big cloaks and I bolted out, but also used to make like tentacles out of bubble wrap, like circle them round with the poppers on the outside, spray them like green and black and stuff, and I'd have them so every so often kind of poking out at the bottom of the cloaks, or like tailing behind me, or I'd stick one out instead of a hand. So just to be like totally alien and totally different. Tzimisce probably is one of the hardest clans to pull off. And there's not a lot of Tzimisce representations jump in my head that I remember from Games of Jord, because I did a load of Sabat stuff. I finally come to Tremere, the Usurpers. Give a clan almost exclusive access to the most powerful discipline, thaumaturgy, with all its paths, all its rituals. I should have said thaumagubi. We used to use the term gooby to be overpowerful rules. So give a clan almost exclusive access to thaumagubi, and also give the clan almost no weakness. So you got 1 point blood bond towards the clan, compared with, you know, if a Tzimisce loses a soil they've got to sleep in, then they're absolutely screwed. Is it any wonder that it attracts a certain type of player? Now, this isn't to say I've seen some pretty good representations of Tremere, but generally when I think about Tremere, I think about grim-faced people who are most likely to min-max and power gain. I'm sorry, at my experience, and I've experienced a lot of role-playing games, and I can bet you bottom dollar at least half of any Tremere players in a game are going to be those people. They're going to be the people who's going to say, why do I have to come in late? Well, you want to cast like 5 rituals before you turn up to Elysium. But my character would always cast those 5 rituals. Well, you're going to turn up a bit late, but why am I losing out as a player because I'm going to cast these 5 rituals? it says it takes you half an hour to cast each ritual, and you want to do 5 every time you turn up to the game, just on the off chance you wee munchkin. Now, one representation of a Tremere did stick with me, and it's probably my favourite representation I've ever seen as a Tremere. And every time I run a game, I always include a character like this as an NPC. Damien Diamond, nightclub owner, the Tremere face of the Chantry. He had loads of dominate and loads of auspex, very little thaumaturgy, and he was the Tremere that cut deals, that chatted to people. He had a diamond fang. He'd lost one of his pulled fangs. He had a diamond fang as well as his regular fang. So I've always liked the idea of the sociable, outgoing Tremere being the face of the Chantry. Unfortunately, what I saw in 95% of other Tremere were sort of grim-faced, silent, and often min-maxing. People who complain about the rules all the time. That's a Tremere, sadly. Anyway, after chatting about the Tremere there, that's me covered all 13 clans in part 1 and part 2. Let me know your thoughts and feelings. Obviously, these clans that I've covered today tend to be a bit more niche, get their own supporters, and their own people that really advocate for them over the other ones. But yeah, let us know what's been your experience with these clans, and I look forward to chatting to you in another video. So that's goodbye for now. Bye bye.